Welcome everyone to the Moisky News for February 27th, 2020. Today I was going to talk about the recent speech given by Sajid Javid about why he walked away as Chancellor of the Exchequer. I'm going to do it tomorrow instead, because it's a fairly lengthy speech and I want to give it the correct amount of time. Instead, we're going to talk about the UK's negotiations with the EU, which actually have already begun, kinda-ish, maybe not quite. With Boris Johnson and Michael Gove warning the EU that we will walk away from trade talks in June, which is quite early, I have to say, unless there is a broad outline of a deal, with the Prime Minister favouring a Canada-style free trade agreement. This kind of idea could work, by the way, but it took Canada several years to negotiate it, because of those delightful red lines to protect the integrity of the EU, which everyone else acquiesces to because how dare you have your own. This all came about during a speech given by the Chancellor and Duchy of Lancaster, Michael Sneck Gove, who said that the UK is not seeking UK or EU rules alignment. For a number of situations and circumstances, we actually surpass the rules of the EU. Their benchmark is not adequate for us. In some areas, not all. Michael Gove does believe, though, that we can strike a comprehensive free trade agreement within 10 months, but is only giving themselves 4 months to agree something. Right. Okay. Michael Gove's argument for not aligning with the EU's rules is that we will not trade away our sovereignty. I didn't realise mutual understanding was that, but I also understand that we should have autonomy on the standards we set. Now, the EU has already put out its priorities ahead of the formal start of these talks that commence on Monday. The government has published a 30-page document which outlines the priorities for those talks. These would include the UK is not going to negotiate any arrangements in which the UK does not have control of its own laws and political life. So basically, no membership. Don't even try it. The UK wants a trade relationship with the EU similar to the ones with the 27-nation bloc has with Canada, Japan and South Korea. There will be no jurisdiction for EU law or the European Court of Justice in the UK. I'm sure that's going to make extraditing certain bad people tricky. And a separate agreement on fisheries is needed to reflect the fact that the UK will be an independent coastal state at the end of 2020. I have always firmly said we should not allow anyone else to fish within our waters. Our own fisheries need time and chance to replenish. It's like the farming issue. For those who don't know, UK land is quite acidic. To maintain to the standards of the EU's own rules, the agricultural policy rules that is not only expensive, but also damaging to our own ecology, and does in fact, in the long term, damage the yield of the crops if we cannot properly rejuvenate the land. There's only so much mucking of the fields that will actually accomplish anything. And the same applies to fisheries where they need to replenish on their own, and we shouldn't be relying on fish farms, which require a considerable amount of supplements to boost those fish to what they need to be, because natural is totally wrong, yo, swag. And we must let the French come and take our fish, because French, I should point out now, if any of the French do that, they're going to get barged. We don't have many boats, but the boats we do have, they're willing to try. We'll just bring some of those old wooden ones out of retirement and stick a battering ram on them. Jackdaws 1, 2 and 3 at your service. Back on topic. The EU published a 46-page negotiating document indicating the UK should be expected to keep aligned with changes to EU rules that cover state subsidies for industry, environmental standards and workers' rights in future. With workers' rights, I actually tend to agree. The work time directive, I actually don't mind. Ensuring people have certain standards in the employment environment, I totally agree with that. When it comes to, subsidies for industry, environmental standards, we should be leading the way anyway. We shouldn't have to align with the EU for that. They've also said that any trade agreement should uphold common high standards, of course, and corresponding high standards over time with union standards as a reference point. No, we should set our own standards, and if they're not up to your standard, or if ours surpass your standard, how about you get good, scrub? Or You just don't work with us when our standards aren't up to your standard. Boris Johnson has said that the whole objective of doing what we're doing is so that the UK can do things differently and better, and that all we want is mutual recognition of each other's high standards and access to each other's markets. We would not ask the EU to follow every particular in UK legislation, so it doesn't make any sense for them to make the same requirement of us. And that is where we are. I think Barnier and David Frost, who are going to be leading both negotiating teams, have a real interesting challenge ahead. And this will be a really damning statement of the UK government if they can't deliver on what they've said they want to deliver on in the 30-page document. But it would equally be a damning statement if Michel Barnier does not either. Let's not forget here, anything that is agreed upon in negotiations still has to go through Parliament. While Conservatives do hold a majority, I'm sure there will be some divisiveness if it isn't agreed upon there. And the same applies to the 27 nations of the EU country. Same applies there. If they don't like it, they're not going to agree to it. So finding common ground is going to be a real challenge. And yes, I am 100% looking forward to this. This is where we find out whether Boris was all talk or not. Whether he can deliver and make a better country, as he keeps saying he can, where we will level up without the use of a rare candy. With this, I'm very much interested to know what you think. Who do you think is going to come out on top here? I do think it is a good idea that I go through the 46-page EU document, but also the UK's 30-page document. I think those would be great videos, possibly stream instead, but I think video might be more formal and informative. If you do want that, do let me know down below, along with what you think about this particular development.